Hi, this is Tom Soane, and today we're going to go back to school and learn all about the most exciting subject in the world, Japanese knotweed. Oh yes. All right, it's not so exciting when you say it like that, but we need to know about Japanese knotweed because if you're experienced in property, you will have already heard of the name Japanese knotweed. If you're not, then it is the most destructive and aggressive, most invasive plant in the entire country. And something like 4 or 5% of all properties in this country are affected by Japanese knotweed. So I wanted to give you a few pointers on it, how you can spot it, what to do if you do spot a property with Japanese knotweed, whether you're going to buy it or whether it's your own, what you can do about it. But also there's a little bit of an opportunity here. You can actually make a bit more money out of properties that have Japanese knotweed. So I wanted to share that with you as well. But look, before we get on with it, what is Japanese knotweed? Well, obviously it's Japanese and obviously it's a plant. The problem is it grows so fast. It grows something like 10 centimeters every single day, and it can grow up to about 3 meters in height, which is mind-blowing when you consider that I'm about 2 meters tall, so I'm really tall. It's like 1.5 of me. Now that's a lot. Now the problem with Japanese knotweed is that it just keeps growing. It doesn't stop. It breaks through cracks in your brickwork, concrete joins, you know, where you've got a load of concrete and that meets up with another load of concrete. It breaks through that. It breaks into all of your drainage, your sewers, driveways. Driveways are really badly affected by Japanese knotweed. It also can get into the wall cavities too. And once it gets in there, it just keeps growing and it just destroys structures of houses and brickwork and everything like that because it just keeps growing. It doesn't stop. It's almost as destructive as, say, tree roots. They just keep going and don't stop. And once they get into all of that area, it just becomes a massive problem. So if you're buying a property and Japanese knotweed is there at the property that you're buying, then there's a serious problem. You won't be able to get a mortgage on that property. But if you've got a property right now and you've got Japanese knotweed, then you need to do something about it, and I'll explain more about that in a second. But if you are selling a property and you've got Japanese knotweed at the property, then you are required by law to declare that it's within 3 meters of your property. So anywhere 3 meters around your property, you've got to declare it. It's your responsibility. You can't just say, I don't know. So when you're selling a property and you fill out something called a TA6 form for your lawyer, which is like a property information form, on there it says, is there Japanese knotweed present? Now, historically, you could just write yes or no. So if you just wrote no, that means you just don't know. If you don't know, you just write no. But now, if you don't know, you have to write not known. That then will flag up to the buyer's lawyer to say to the buyer, listen, the seller doesn't know if there's Japanese knotweed here. I recommend you go and get it tested by a specialist. And look, the lenders will also need evidence. If there is Japanese knotweed at that property, they will need evidence of a treatment plan in place before they'll lend any money on the property. So that's why Japanese knotweed is a big problem for investors, because it's very difficult to get mortgages on it if there's Japanese knotweed present, unless there's a plan to have it removed. Now, some lenders will have to have it completely removed before they'll lend. So that's a big risk. Even if the property's had Japanese knotweed in the past, it is still a risk. So look, a lot of the time you will need to declare that information to your lawyer, who will in turn declare it to the buyer and their lawyer. But do you know what? Japanese knotweed in this country, so I'm right down on the south coast where there's a mild presence of Japanese knotweed. There are some areas that are more susceptible to Japanese knotweed, like London is really heavily covered in Japanese knotweed. Well, I say heavily, there's a lot of it there, a lot more than other areas. You've got Wales, most of Wales is very heavily covered in Japanese knotweed. The Midlands and the Northwest, that whole sort of area is also quite susceptible to Japanese knotweed. So if you're buying property up there or you're selling property up there, then that is definitely something for you to watch out for. So if you find, let's say you're selling a property and you find out you've got Japanese knotweed, what can you do? Or if you just own a property and you find out that you've got Japanese knotweed, what can you do? Well, there's two ways to do it. First of all, you can treat it over about 2 or 3 years with some sort of herbicide. I don't know what it's called, but that normally costs you 2 or 3 grand to get that done. So a specialist will come in and treat it at periodic times throughout the 2 or 3 year period to gradually kill it off. The other way, that'll cost you a couple of grand, 2 or 3 grand, something like that. The other way to do it, which is the more extreme way, is a complete excavation, which costs about 5 or 6 grand, there or thereabouts. It might be different in different areas of the country, but once you get that excavated, then normally that will come with a 10-year guarantee that it won't return. So a lot of lenders prefer a full excavation, and if I was you, I would probably go for that too. I know it costs extra money, but if you spend 2 or 3 grand over a couple of years and then it comes back, you're just gonna have to spend it again anyway. And do you know what? I just realised there was a court case a little while ago where a surveyor went to a property, gave the all clear and said, yes, they recommend buying this property to the buyer and to the lender. The buyer had instructed the surveyor to go and do a survey, and their report said, yes, we recommend buying this property. There are no defects, no risks, or whatever they said. And that surveyor ended up in court and paying the costs to the owner. I think it was about 10 grand or something like that. So look, if you're a surveyor watching this or listening to this, then you need to kind of make sure that you're not missing it either. Otherwise, you could be in trouble. But you, homeowner, as well, you can also be in trouble if you neglect it. So if you've got Japanese knotweed and you just leave it to let it grow, then you can also be in trouble for neglect. Purely because it might affect your neighbour's property. It could also affect the safety of your property. So look, I guess the long and the short of that bit is if you've got Japanese knotweed, you must do something about it because you'll pay at some point down the line. So hopefully that kind of gets into the mind and you do something about it. But how do you spot it? Well, look, it's quite distinctive actually. So depending on what time of year it is, normally speaking, when it's in full bloom or whatever, there's loads of green leaves, obviously, because leaves mostly are green, but there's quite distinctive white flowers, and they hang in bunches or clusters, and there's like a green stem. It looks like a bamboo. You know the bamboo? Yeah, you know what bamboo is. Looks like a bamboo, but it's a slightly darker green, and it's got purple speckles or like marks throughout the whole bamboo-like shoot. So that's when it's in its full, and normally that's in the summertime. That's when it's in its full growth appearance, if you like. Before that, you'll see the red and purpley shoots. So like the bamboo shoots, they'll be red and purple at the beginning when they first come out. Then they'll turn into the green. But then later on in the winter, for an example, the knotweed will sort of draw back down into its roots, and those bamboo shoots or canes, they'll turn into what looks like wood, like a woody colour anyway. They look like wooden stalks, if you like. So they look dead, but they're not. They are not. So that's how to spot it. So go out in your garden now, just have a look for those shoots. They literally look like bamboo shoots, and it's summer right now when I'm doing this, so you'll be able to see them for sure. But what's the opportunities here? Now, look, you've got to have big balls if you're going to go for a property with Japanese knotweed, yes, but you just have to be clever about it. Remember, your life doesn't change, the offer changes. Across the country, if I remember right, don't quote me on this, but it's something like a 10% reduction in value for properties with Japanese knotweed. Okay, that's fine. So now we've got a number to work with. So if you go for a property that has Japanese knotweed and it causes you to renegotiate the price, then that's where you start. Now, I would offer less than that, because if there's Japanese knotweed and I'm an investor, I'm not just looking to offer the 10% less. I want the 10% plus a bit more contingency, a bit more risk mitigation, so to speak. I want to offer a bit less. So I'll probably be looking to offer 15 to 20% less than the value if a property's got Japanese knotweed. Now, I will negotiate, but look, and I'm sorry if you're a seller and you that sounds harsh to you, but let me explain. If I'm buying a property for investment and the Japanese knotweed is present, then that's a big risk for me. So the way I counteract risk is by reducing my offer, because I'm obviously taking on a huge risk. Because I don't know if that Japanese knotweed, I pay $5 or $6 grand to get it completely excavated, or whatever the word is, then that's fine. What if it comes back later down the line? I've got to spend that again. So that's my risk that I'm taking. So therefore, I'm going to offer a far lower amount to cover my own risk. But look, I would say to anybody looking to invest in property and get a really cheap deal, think about it like this. If you go out and buy a property that's got Japanese knotweed and you can get it for a decent discount that covers your risk and makes you comfortable, then buy it. Because even in the worst case scenario, you might buy it today, and when it completes, you spend $5 grand, let's say, on completely excavating the entire Japanese knotweed problem. You get a 10-year guarantee, so you know you're not going to have any issues for 10 years, and even if you do, it'll be free to remove. Then you can, after that 10 years, I'd probably advise you to redo it just to make sure, or retest just to make sure. Now, if you think of it like that, there's some really good deals to be had there when you might find a really nice house. All right, it's got Japanese knotweed, but you know the figure that it's going to cost you to remove the problem. So now you can build that into your calculation. And if you're going to buy a property to rent out, then you could get that one property, keep it for 20 years, and only have to do 2 excavations, which is going to cost you 10 grand. So you can build that into your offer. You can make sure your calculation works, and you can make the offer, make it low or lower. Don't take the piss, don't be greedy. That's the key to a bad investor, is as soon as you start getting greedy, you will miss out on deals. Just stick to your yield, stick to your plan, make money, don't be greedy. Anyway, so find those properties with Japanese knotweed. Now, where do you find them? Well, I've just told you one place that you can get them is from Japanese knotweed specialists. Give them a call. See if they know of any properties that have had issues with Japanese knotweed that were for sale. Maybe the sale's fallen through. Who was the agent? Speak to the agent and say, hey, look, I'd be interested in buying it. I know it's got Japanese knotweed. I'm okay with it because I know the risk and I've done my calculation. I've watched Tom Sohn on my laptop or my phone. So he's told me that I just need to calculate it like this. So that's the offer I'm making. Don't say that last bit. But now you know that you can actually make a decent profit from Japanese knotweed properties. You can just get rid of the knotweed and then make the money from the property. So look, I hope that helps. And look, I just wanted to say this as well, because there's been quite a few cases of Japanese knotweed in Portsmouth, which is where I live. And one of my investor clients who I'm working with at the moment said to me, should I buy this or should I not? So I said to him, hey, look, this is the situation. I told him exactly what I've just said to you in this video, other than all the stats, of course, but told him exactly what I've just said to you. He's gone ahead and bought it. He's got a decent little property investment there. So I think we can all enjoy that same tip. So quick tip to go and find really good buy-to-let properties. Go and find Japanese knotweed affected properties. As long as you do it right, you get it tested, you get it excavated, and you calculate it correctly, then you'll get yourself a good deal. Now, don't forget, I'm doing a big feature. Well, I've done it actually, but it's going to be released on my podcast, The Anonymous Landlord. And the big feature is all about everything to look for when you're searching for investment properties. So if you're going out viewing properties right now, I've been doing this for over 20 years or something like that. And now I go to a property and I instinctively know all of the little checks I need to do, all of the little things I need to check for. I've learned from builders, developers, investors and other agents and all sorts of people, even lenders and surveyors, because all of them look for different things. Mortgage lenders are looking for different things to builders, and builders are looking for different things to agents, and investors are looking for different things to developers. So what we need to do is, what I need to do is really share with you everything I'm looking for when I'm viewing a property, so that you can write it down, you can tick it off, tick, tick, tick. Actually, do you know what I'll do? I will do it as a podcast so I can explain it, but I'll also give away a free checklist guide, everything to look for. I'll make that for you and I'll do it as a free download. Don't worry, I don't charge any money for this, but I will give it away to you for free. So look, that is Japanese knotweed in a nutshell. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, because then I can send you a notification to let you know when a new episode has come out. Just search on your podcast platform of choice, The Anonymous Landlord. Actually, you can just type Landlord and it will come up. But anyway, my name is Tom Soane. That was Japanese knotweed. You're going to subscribe to The Anonymous Landlord.